Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the opening day Talking Horses at Saratoga. Acacia Clement, Andy Serling. Talking Horses brought to you by Saratoga Water. And how great is it to be in Saratoga?
It is so wonderful. And I know that it's a really special place for all of us, Andy. We love seeing the fans. We love getting to chat with everybody, even just coming up here to the set. And we've got a great card. Luckily, knock on wood, the sun is shining right now, which is the best case scenario. And getting ready to hopefully give some good picks, but we'll see how things play out.
I'm sort of going for the not sucking. You know,
I just don't want to completely embarrass
for the 40-day meet in Saratoga, just
summer,
so you know. But no, it is great to be back, and it's nice, to see so many people. And we've been here for only a few minutes, and so many people have stopped by, and that's the thing that makes Saratoga so special.
Yeah.
We can say it; it sounds corny, but the reality is, the racetracks aren't populated the way they were years ago. And I'm old enough to know what it was like when Belmont Park and Aqueduct were packed on a daily basis. But everybody comes to Saratoga, and it's nice to see so many familiar and some unfamiliar faces as well.
We're happy to be here and happy to have you all with us, too.
We are. We got a lot to talk about. We got a 10-race card to talk about. So you know the drill. Head on over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, we've got a new promo code, SPA200. Use the promo code SPA200, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. Head on over to NairaBets.com. We have an early bird bonus. I've already opted into this, especially. You bet 100 or more in the first 5 races, $10 bonus. So, hopefully you'll be winning, but you certainly have a chance to cut those losses as well. What else do we have? You got to opt in over at Naira Bets. Middle pick 4, and Acacia loves the middle pick 4. Races 2, 4, and 7 on our 10-race cards here at Saratoga for the middle pick 4. We also have, we're starting a little early in Saratoga Live today, 12:30. Of course, first post is just a little after 1:10 every day. We'll be on a little early. That's FS2.
How many times are you going to call it America's Day at the races? We got to get used
to
Saratoga
America's Day at the races
No, you
already?
didn't. I'm just saying.
I called you Acacia Clement. So just be
You
happy
did.
with
I know
what you
you did.
have. Don't. Now that you've said it, now you've jinxed me. I mean, seriously. I'm very limited, Acacia, okay, as you know well. Anyhow, we got 10 to talk about. The first race was not a great scratch for both Acacia and I.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a good scratch, but we both liked the 3 toned up. With her out of the race, I think Buston Bay is not surprising where the money's going to go, and we're coming off that meet, and Irad Ortiz not in race 1. His brother Jose, who beat him by 1 at Belmont, took advantage of that little suspension that Irad had on the second to last weekend, beat him by 1. He's got Buston Bay, but I don't know, man. This field seems tougher, and I wonder a little bit about the 1 1/8 around 2 turns, and Honey Money has speed as well.
That's my question. I just don't know about the distance for Buston Bay. Now, she is a little bit of a lankier type of build, but the 1 1/16 at Belmont versus the 1 1/8 at Saratoga is a much different animal. And we've seen in past years that these races can just be so taxing on horses and trying to get that distance. Obviously, she's in great form. Linda Rice, Jose Ortiz teaming up, the leaders of the Belmont Park Spring-Summer meet. I know that she's going to be a short price, but I wanted to have a little bit of a new face in here.
Yeah, there are sort of 3 newish faces in here, 3-year-olds. The 1 Virtual Reality off a maiden win, the 6 Sabra Tough, and the 7 Ocean Gateway. I wished I could find a way to excuse the Ocean Gateway. You have her second, and you are obviously close to the Clement barn. Is there some excuse for her disaster at Pimlico last time?
Well, Miguel, my husband and assistant trainer to Christoph, said that she didn't handle the heat well last time. It was very, very hot
That's
at
their
Pimlico.
story, and they're going with it?
He said, really, you can't explain the poor performance. He said she didn't handle the heat well. It's hot today, too, so that's going to be a concern, and she is coming up from Belmont. But I think more than anything, she's one I'm convinced in this race wants the distance. I know that she wants to go the 1 1/8. She's a big, long striding type. I don't know. Maybe that race is an aberration. Maybe that last race is one that you really should be concerned about. Today's the day that she has to prove that she actually has a bit of ability.
But I think you could almost say that about all of the 3-year-olds we mentioned, because you have horses like Honey Money and Buston Bay who have run reasonably well, and may be a star also, though, we'll see about the 2 turns. She has run well up here. She has a 72 buyer up here in 2022 in July, which for her was a long, long time ago. As far as Sabra Tough, I didn't want to put her on top with the scratch. I would have kept her second if the 3 was in the race. I don't like the fact that she's stake-faced. All she's done is run in stakes, and she's going to get overbet because of that. And the 8 bells figure is not holding up over time. That still means she can win here, but I thought she'd be a short price because of the races she'd been in. but obviously she can win.
It's fair. And I originally had her second with Toned Up on top, so I scratched into her. But that said, because she faced Who's Your Philly, Wonder Wheel, Red Carpet Ready in her recent races, it's really tough to kind of get a read on her, too. You know, what is she? What is she able to do? Maybe it's Dallas Stewart just being a little bit more realistic with her. Can she handle the distance? We don't really know that either. So she has a lot of questions. Again, I scratched into her, but I didn't necessarily trust Ocean Gateway or even Boston Bay or even the horse that you scratched into, Virtual Reality. She gutted out the victory, but that was over Risk Free, who's 0 for 15.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's going to have to improve in her second start and improve with more distance. And I think the feeling with her always was that she would improve with more distance.
Sure.
She's going to get overbet because of the connections, so I wasn't really thrilled with that concept. To be honest with you, among the 1 and 6, I would take the one that was a bigger price. I was hoping by post time she'd be a bigger price, but she's going to have to improve. There's no doubt about it. But she does seem like a filly that can improve with more distance. For what it's worth, stretching in the dirt off a maiden win. Chad Brown's 32% with 50 starters, $1.92 ROI, which is pretty strong when you consider the money his horses take.
Yeah.
So he has done well, 8 for 24 in their second starts, lower ROI, but she's not going to be that short a price. See what happens. Race number 2, I was very sad to see that not only my friend Norm Cassie scratching, but the one for Mary Lou Whitney, because nothing would have been better than to see Mary Lou's silks in the winner's circle on today's opening day. Of course, Mary Lou passed away, but her husband, John Hendrickson, representing the stable. Sorry to see she's not running.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
We got a chance to see that with Pretty Birdie a few years ago.
She won the
Yeah,
Schuylerville
won
a few
the
years ago.
Schuylerville, which was pretty cool. Yes, I was excited about that filly too. I think she was kind of one of the buzz first-time starters in here. I think the other one is the one that you have on top, and I have second, Sugar High, who seems to be training really, really well on the Oklahoma track too.
I'll be honest, I guessed with her because I didn't really want the starters in here. And you can start with Lady Blitz at Monmouth. She was 6 to 5. My racehorse, taking a lot of money, cost $300,000 last year as a yearling. I don't love the horses she ran with. Now, she didn't break. She'll probably break better in her second start, you would have to imagine. And, you see Irad Ortiz on this one and Flavien Prat in the other one. And not to say it's bad. It's good to have Flavien Prat as a sensational rider. But you almost feel, at least I do, like Irad probably had his choice. Maybe I'm wrong. I know it was a sloppy track, but I don't know about this horse.
She was very green too.
Yep,
Like you said, I know
very.
it was a sloppy track, but usually Todd Pletcher's first-time starters are so professional. They know their job. I know this one was training at Monmouth, but much like we talk about.
He has good horse at Monmouth.
Exactly.
Money's Gold
With
won there last year.
With large outfits, when they have horses at another facility, at another racetrack, it's not necessarily a negative. They have to keep them separate often. They have to find space for them.
Reinvestment
to train.
risk when he won up here first time for
Exactly.
Chad Brown, impressively, and he was a stakes horse. He was training at Monmouth.
Right. So there have been a lot of examples of it. That said, I just thought she was really green, the slow break. She's also, according to the Clocker report, been training with the first-time starter Soka in here, and that firster has been outworking her and outfinishing her in the mornings.
I just rather the firster because I've seen the
Me
other
too.
one. I
Me
know it was a
too.
wet track,
And
you want to say it
with my
mitigates a little
racehorse,
bit.
I read Todd Pletcher, second-time starter. She has every formula to be a really short price.
Totally agree with that, and that's why at her second. Now, Lady Moscato of you on top in here was a Wayne Lucas firster. We'll take a look at her running second last time. It would be cool to see Wayne, who's I think he's one of the few people that's been in Saratoga more summers than I have.
He's got some experience here, that's for sure.
I'm not sure that's true. I was around before Wayne, actually.
Well, I wonder, you should compare notes.
Wayne's only a little older than me, but I was in the game here before he was. I just want to say that.
He's been to the winner's circle a lot of times.
A lot
here.
more times
That's
than I
for sure. That's for sure. Lady
In important
Moscato,
races as well.
yeah, she was just second best. She was kind of in second. They went 1-2 around. Louis Saez really urged her out of the gate. I think that she got a little bit of an education, but I really like the pedigree. She's the full sister to Grade 1 winner Salty. That horse was beaten on debut, though she didn't start as a 3-year-old until a 3-year-old.
She won the Acorn. Mark
yes,
Cassie.
she did. Yes, started out with Ian Wilkes.
Wow.
I remember because I bet
That's
her
why
first
she didn't win
time
her first start.
she won. She was second by a neck first out. I remember that. I will never forget.
She was
that.
a nice horse,
Yeah,
actually.
and then there was also Salty as Can Be, who did win first out, that Belmont had. But I think getting second time out, I think she'll improve as she gets some more distance down the line too. But I thought. Oftentimes we see up at Saratoga that experience can be a bit of a key.
No question about
and
it.
we'll see how the track plays. But without being able to see these horses, I went to the experience.
See what happens in race number 2. Race number 3, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. I'm going to start with the unpronounceable horse's name. If I were Frank, I'd call this one the 10.
La Anguilla.
We wish our good
Anguilla.
friend Frank Miramati the best of luck in the
Yes.
Saratoga meet. We're thrilled to have him here, of course, and to know Frank is to love Frank.
He's the best.
He's a good man.
If you really like him, you can buy him a slice of pizza.
Don't buy him a slice of pizza. Seriously, don't. Please don't. We'll take a look at La Aguila, or Aguilala,
Close.
when she ran on the turf a few starts back at Santa Anita. She's 1 for 36. Acacia, David Jacobson's barn. We'll see if he heats up in Saratoga, but he's been very cold recently. She seems to like to finish third. I am not putting this horse on top, so I have her
It was
second.
like the barn everything was running and then cooled way down, which can happen when horses go through their conditions, when they kind of have to step up and face tougher company. That said, this mare, she's 7 now. She's still just 1 for 36. She's very, very tough to trust.
And you have taken the number 8, Liana B, on top.
This one is also tough to trust. It's a speed play. I know that Saratoga Gaze has some speed as well. She's cutting back, but
No, this horse should be the speed.
she is the quickest early.
Especially with Luis Saez,
Yes,
a rider that
he's
you can
gonna
count
be
on to
aggressive.
take no
I
prisoners.
think John Kimmel was very smart about where he placed her. She's not a true, especially New York maiden special weight type. I know she won technically maiden special weight at Monmouth, and she's in for 35. But before that, she was running for maiden 40 and finishing third at Aqueduct. This is just where she belongs. I think it's a logical spot, and I think she's going to be aggressively handled early.
I've got her third, and I don't disagree with any of that. She is supposed to be the speed, and we're glad that Luis Saez, he is the only rider in the last 8 meets at Saratoga with the last name isn't Ortiz that won a riding title. Irad went up 4-3, I think, over Jose, so Jose will look to tie it up this year. And, of course, we'll see how the other riders do. Saratoga Gaze, she's not a miler. She's a horse that wants to go less distance, so I'll give her a pass for her last race. 2 races back, jostled 7/16. Yeah, no. No. What happened was she was completely and totally blocked during the running of this race, and we'll take a look at her. She is down in the inside.
She's
She's trying the
between
green.
horses,
She's
yes.
trying to find a seam, and Kendrick just cannot find anywhere to go. It's not his fault. He put her in the right spot, and now she's behind horses. And if you look at Kendrick, he's not even really riding her here because he just has nowhere to go, and the race is over without him ever having a chance to ride her. So I think you can give her a massive excuse for that return race. And Fleet-Footed turned out to be okay, and I'm just curious. Obviously, she won that race, but I'm just kidding. Excuse me. But I thought that she had real trouble in there. She gets Flavian Pratt. She's got some decent turf sprints. I've taken her on top.
I certainly agree. I think that she, like you said, faced a good horse and fleet-footed. The other horse that I thought was interesting was Smokin' Hot Kitty. There was an incident in that race that did not affect her. That said, you can kind of say, okay, maybe she should have gotten by that day. But I think still that turf sprinting is what's best for her.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. We'll see where her best race is, but her best race, I guess, gives her a chance against this field. I had her fourth, so I had her in there as well. Race number 4, you're going to have to deal with a heavy favor for Chad Brown this race. Now, I tried to beat Salima, and I'm sure
Me
you
too.
tried as well. We'll take a look
I
at.
stared so long at all of them.
Well, we'll look at her race in the Winter Memories when she ran so well that day, and obviously things didn't go well going to lead in the 1.25 mile American Oaks, and she's been off so long, you almost wonder if something didn't happen that day. I just feel like she's better than these horses on her good day, and Chad Brown's good off layoffs.
I just don't think she wants to go 1.25 miles either. She went right
Yeah.
out to the front that day, too. She's coming back to, I think, a more reasonable distance. She won the Winter Memories back last fall. She was in good form. I remember seeing her in her first race off of a layoff last year. Her first race is a 3-year-old in Saratoga, and she was all over the place. She was really, really keyed up. My notes literally say biting pony, nostrils flared. So she was very tough to handle. And I think maybe mentally we've seen her maturing too. Then she was able to put some back-to-back races together. Maybe she's going to be a better horse coming back this year. And she's got to be one of the strongest by El Kabir, huh?
I know, it's amazing
Yeah.
to see El Kabir. Wasn't he standing over? Was he standing overseas? Where was he standing?
I don't know.
She's
I mean,
bred
this
in
filly's
Ireland.
bred in
She's an El
Ireland, so,
Kabir.
yeah.
No, I agree. And El Kabir had done well in our Derby preps at Aqueduct in the winter a few years ago for John Terranova, I want to say. Sister O'Toole is the horse that's the really stake-faced horse in here, though a lot of these have run in stakes. You know, you look at her, and she feels like a horse that's probably prepping for longer races. She's better longer. But you look at the stats, and I have a stat for Graham Motion. He has sensational stats coming off 6 to 12-month layoffs in distance races, not only winning at a high percentage, but doing it with a positive ROI. And I wouldn't just dismiss her from here because she is talented, though she probably is better going a bit longer.
I would agree. She also, her last race in the red carpet, she had a very wide trip that day. She is kind of one of those long galloping type of mares. And sometimes, too, when she races frequently, she's one of those mares that she can get really drawn up. Like you can kind of see when she's been racing a lot. And I think probably will do well with a little bit of a break and coming back. Maybe a prep race, but she's obviously got ability.
I thought about picking Pocamuca on top because she did have that win here last year before going bad in Kentucky. And I wanted to show her last race because you read that inside loom blocked. She was.
Yes.
I mean, whether or not she was going to win the race.
Keen.
Yeah, she has a legit excuse. I mean, she was in the process of getting a very good trip. But she is completely and totally blocked behind horses. And Luis basically has to eat her.
She had no opportunity to run, and kind of what you just said with Kendrick in the last race with Saratoga Gaze, it was a similar situation here. He kind of just protected her and just said, okay, Mama, we're just going to give you this race, and we're just going to stop here at this point because she had nowhere to go. And she also looked like a mare that she didn't seem very comfortable to even try to run up in between horses either. She didn't want to, and he didn't push her, to his credit. Joel Rosario's piloted her to victory before. That's also her first race off the layoff, too. So second off the bench today. I think she's a player.
And it could be a nightmare. Now, Salima is owned by Peter Brandt's wife, Stephanie, and Rocky Sky, who this horse beat last year, was a Peter Brandt horse as well. So maybe it's a nightmare showing up. And I'll tell you something. Had I known that Canisi was not going to run, or if Messidor was just entering her own, I might give her a shot because she had an absolutely ridiculous trip in the Intercontinental.
She
a
did.
time you needed to save ground in that course was
her.
out in the middle of the track. And the fact that she ran as well as she did a mile here, now maybe a mile and 16th is stretching it a bit for her, and it's not an easy field. But I wouldn't fall asleep on her because she might look like her form's been bad, but she's had ridiculous trips in her races. And I think this spot suits her better to run a better race. And without Canisi in there, she's not going to be 5-2, so she might be a reasonable price.
And it's tough because probably 7 furlongs is maybe her preferred
a mile
distance.
and 16th is a little bit of a stretch.
Right, and obviously you don't have that opportunity here at Saratoga, so you have to try and find the right spot. 5.5 is definitely going to be too short. So
nothing really stands up to the Christophe Clement whine that we won't have any more 7-furlong races until next spring because we won't be back at Belmont. He may have mentioned that to some of you at some point in your lives. And the other thing, she did beat Evie Jets, though, when she won here at a mile. So it's not as though she didn't face a talented runner. And Evie Jets is a multiple stakes winner since that race. Race number 5. There were some key scratches in here with the 1 coming out, the 4 coming out as well, and even to a lesser extent Hammer and Hammer, but particularly taking some pace out of here. But I still think between horses like Silver Dust, the 9 235, and the 3 Pit Boss, there's supposed to be a bit of a pace in here.
I would think so, and I think we're going to see 235 be aggressive from the outside.
I have to think this is the race that Joel's going to go.
I would think that has to be the game plan for him. And the thing about Dust Devil, too, is that typically he comes from off the pace, but he's not one of those deep, really far back closing types. He can kind of be mid-pack, and I think Flavian Pratt, one thing we've seen about him, if there's not a lot of pace, he's going to put his horse in a spot where they can get the right kind of trip and be forward.
I agree. Now, it's tricky. Here he's finishing second. Now, this race... It's interesting. This race, he was a total suck-up second because the reality was the third horse ran the better race. He dueled for the most part with Last Chance at Glory, who's a horse that just wins certainly every time in the racetrack, and he picked up the pieces for second. Now, his prior race with Manny, I don't blame Manny, but as it turned out, he probably moved a little soon. I don't think he was beating Glory Road regardless, but he could have run a little better. So he is a horse that you need to time it right, and I don't disagree with you. He has the benefit that he can be a little bit closer, but he's not an easy horse to time it with.
Yeah, I certainly agree, but my point of that is that sometimes horses that are victims of pace are the ones that are very far back. I don't think
I
he's
agree.
Oh,
no, I agree. I totally agree with that, and that's one of the reasons I had him here. Listen, I think Pit Boss is dangerous.
I agree.
Gets Javier Castellano here in this
Completely
race, and Javier had 3 wins on opening day last year.
Yeah.
We wish Javier and all the riders the best of luck. What do you do with Portos? I mean, I've got him 3rd. I'm guessing you would have made him your 4th pick with the scratches
I
here.
did.
He wants more ground, but he's run well at this distance. I assume that Flying P is dropping to try to win a race in Saratoga, but you can say that. They're still giving him away for 20. He's virtually a cinch to get claimed. And I don't care. That line, they're dropping to win a race in Saratoga, gets you in a lot of trouble.
He's still fourth in a stake, two back.
Right.
You know, you could certainly imagine. I know he's a 6-year-old. He doesn't really have many conditions left or opportunities to run and things like that as an older horse. But yes, it is a very big drop in class. And it's also tough because he's coming out of a 1.5-mile race as well.
He's pace compromised.
He's pace compromised.
No question
and
about it.
It's tough to get a read on him and where he
Potentially
really belongs.
pace compromised.
Right.
If they're moving up front, he'll be fine.
Right.
And it's IRAD, the big drop down. He's going to end up being the favorite in this race, and I just don't want him as the favorite while acknowledging he could well win.
I agree, especially like you said. I think those kind of stakes-faced horses are the ones that immediately draw the eye because they faced better in their last race.
Right, and be careful about just assuming things. Oh, they're trying to win in Saratoga. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And Jay Provenzano, Flying P, he's trying to win like everybody else is, but he's still dropping a horse like this in for 20 at opening day in the meet, and he knows he's going to lose him, and don't lose sight of that. That's the first 5. Acacia and I will be back after a quick break to hear from our good friends at Saratoga Springwater.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Acacia Clement and Andy Serling as we get into the late pick 5 here on opening day. The 6th race on the turf. I thought this was a pretty interesting race. I'm kind of looking forward to this race. And I'm not going to make a big argument against running with scissors. We'll show running with scissors. This is the win back on April 27th, 3 races back. It was a tougher spot last time. He was badly overbet at 4 to 5. I don't want to hold it against him. But I also want to talk about your top choice, who I have third, Yarrow. Putting blinkers on after running as well as he did, albeit setting a very slow pace here, you have to think the hope is to at least be a little more forward today.
That's my thought process. And just quickly, since we have the replay to wrap up thoughts with running with scissors, also, as I was kind of talking about earlier with some horses that kind of the Cinderella effect, what happens at midnight, right? You could see him after winning 2 races in a row last time. His coat just didn't look as good. His weight didn't look as good. Everything was kind of catching up to him. So I think back now at this level is the right spot for him, and hopefully he'll be able to kind of get back on track, because I think those 2 wins and the frequent racing was kind of catching up with running.
And you'll be in the paddock for this race, so you can take a look at him as well, and we'll see. And it'll be interesting to see if the Jacobson barn can heat up again. I have nothing against him.
Yeah.
I just feel like those were the opportunities for him and to move on a little bit. And my problem with Yarrow is, even more forward, he's not likely to make the lead here.
Right.
And I felt like his best race hinges on being good enough. Now, listen, I've got him in the mix. So obviously, I'm not wildly against him.
No, and I went through this race for such a long time and went back and forth, and I switched my picks like 3 or 4 times as far as who I wanted on top, because I think you can make a case for several, and I think Phantom Smoke, and we'll get to him in a moment, could be really interesting too. But Yarrow has run well here at Saratoga. When you look at his races at Belmont, you think, okay, maybe it's just him getting into a bit of a stride at Belmont a little bit more, but he's run well at Saratoga too. And I think with the blinkers on, keeping Manny Franco, who was not at all aggressive with him last time, yes, he's not going to make the lead in here, but he's not going to be as far back as he was.
No, I agree. I agree, and I think he ran well enough in that race. It was the best race he's really ever run. My thing with Phantom Smoke, and we're going to take a look at Rough Draft and Phantom Smoke's last race, where Rough Draft finished ahead of Phantom Smoke. But Phantom Smoke, I want to show the start. He didn't get out of the gate, and he was bumped coming out of the start, and it just sort of took him out of the race. And this is a horse that, doing his best running, he does it forward. And Flavien Prat knows that, and he is quick. And I have to think today he comes out running. Now, listen, winner's laugh, trying the turf for the first time, could have speed as well as a potential thorn in his side. Foolish Ghost has speed as well. We'll see if he has speed on the turf. But I think you're going to see him more forward today, and I feel like that really took him out of the game. And also, it was a very slow pace last time, going 7 furlongs, and I think 5.5 is a lot better for Phantom Smoke. I've never been his biggest fan, but I feel like if he's going to run a race, a winning race, today is the day, and the price will be okay.
He's also a horse that really carries his weight, and I think he really needed that race off the layoff last time, too, not to mention the trip that you mentioned.
And it's a tough spot for him going 7 off the layoff. He blows the brake. It's not like he ever gave up. Listen, Rough Draft ran fine in there.
He's done nothing wrong as of yet.
But he's also had extremely good trips on top of a slow pace. Last time sat on the rail and angled out behind a fast pace before that. And I don't know if this race is going to work out as well, but I'm a David Duggan fan. I'm certainly not going to suggest he has no chance in here. I wonder what to do a little with the horse you and I both have for, Bar 14. Because his race 3 back was good enough to be competitive with some trouble. He was atrocious last time.
He was. He really was. I don't know what happened to him that day either, because I was actually a little interested in, I really liked Ruse that day in that race, but I thought we were going to see Bar 14, who historically is not slow. And so I find it interesting that for a horse that sometimes his best weapon was being forward and kind of being in the right place, the blinkers are coming off today too. And sometimes maybe as horses get older, you just need to change something on them to kind of wake them up a little bit.
And that race was in April, so it's not as though he doesn't have some recent solid form. And that race back in November at Aqueduct where he finished second with trouble, I mean, that would make him a player in here. So I wouldn't completely dismiss him. Maybe he'll wake up today after running poorly last time. Moving on to race number 7. I thought race number 7 was about as tough as it gets. And this is what you get in Saratoga. What we like is horses coming from different spots. Tom Ames coming in with Need Some Money, a horse that was named for Tom. The 9 Condiment Gal, a horse that Robertino Diodoro's bringing in. We're going to start seeing this army of horses that Linda Rice claimed at Churchill that she couldn't run until basically last week. You have these sort of new faces showing up. You've got a couple for Rick Dutrow back in business. I mean, Into Happiness ran a huge race last time out. We've left her out. She runs her last race she's going to win. But I felt like she met this sort of weak field last time and showed up. And I don't really trust her. And I don't love that Michelle Nevin got rid of her.
And
nothing against Mark, but Michelle is so good.
And it could prove to be a very sharp claim because she has some backlash. But that was also at a time when Michelle Nevin's horses, especially those coming off a little bit of a layoff or freshening, were really running too. And it was a drop in class down to the non-2 level. I thought that she found the right spot, and she was impressive that day. I did go to Tom Amos's horse and Need Some Money. Hopefully that's not something that all horse players are saying after the first day here already. But
I need some money, by the way. I'm just letting you know. If anybody has a few they want to give me, I'm around.
Donation.
I wouldn't say need, but, I'd like.
The interesting thing about this filly is that what we often see with Tom is that he likes his horses to be forward, and he often puts a little pace into them too. And she was just really sluggish out of the gate last time. She was wide. I wanted to give her a chance second time in his barn.
And listen, the 4th place horse was okay. 2nd place finisher improved her by her figure 4 points. I didn't love the winner of that race, Frigid Lady, who had run much lower numbers before that. But there are some things to be optimistic about her. Listen, I could have come up with a lot of horses near. And you look at Albrigada for Linda Rice. This is a really bizarre one. We'll take a look at her last race. Linda, she got claimed for $20,000 in a $1.02 lifetime and ran a 59 buyer. I'm guessing that the other numbers, sheet numbers that Linda looks at, were much better because she claims her for 50 after not getting her for 20. Now, let me give you another horse. Betsy Blue got claimed for 25. Linda claimed her for 50 after that, and she's won hundreds of thousands of dollars with it. So you want a horse, you pay for it. And she ran like the 50 was worth it last time, but she's also coming out of conditional races and coming here. I didn't know exactly what to do with her, but Linda's coming off a huge meet at Belmont. She showed no signs of slowing up at the end of the meet, and I have to think she's a major player here.
And like you said, this is one of those horses that she claimed in Kentucky, obviously with the goal of wanting to run in Saratoga. And she's very sharp with claiming horses and pointing them to a certain goal. It feels like when she dips in to claim a horse, it's with a certain race or a certain situation in mind.
Yeah,
know?
it's interesting also to see her running early at the meet because sometimes Linda will wait a little bit into the middle part of the meet when it gets a little softer. And then there's Condiment Girl, and I'm excited to see Christian Torres riding
I
here.
know,
He
me
rode so
too.
well at Oaklawn over the winter. Keep your eye on him. He's a sort of a rider you're probably not familiar with unless you really followed him at Oaklawn. That kid can ride.
Can.
I wonder what to do with her. She beat a very weak field last time out. And I just feel like this is a much tougher field, but I'm not going to fall asleep on Robertino Diodoro horses.
And she won by open lengths that day, too. I mean, she won her last two impressively. She's in good form. I wonder if she can keep it going. We'll see. But she has a little bit of natural speed, too. She's not the quickest gate horse as far as breaking on top, but then she'll move up and set the pace. But Christian has really, I think, made a good name for himself. I remember I was working at Gulfstream when he first started as an apprentice and was cutting his teeth there in the summer. And he was kind of getting ignored because he wasn't at a track in the summer at Gulfstream that people were paying so much attention to. And then he went and everybody was like, wow, where did he come from? But he's definitely put the work in. I think he has a lot of talent and happy to see him here.
He's also Paul LaDuca's biggest fan. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, I did not know that.
You were sunning yourself in Florida while the rest of us were doing the heavy lifting, doing the Oaklawn meet in the winter. You know, sort of lazing around.
It's not lazing.
By the way, Acacia, I had to get up a little before 7 today to come over here, which hopefully will never happen again. Yeah. Acacia was at hot yoga at 6:30 this morning.
Yes.
So we know who the sick person is up on this set.
I feel good. I feel
the obvious
refreshed.
Dutro horse to take here is Savardada. But she's also a hanger with 4 straight seconds. And, I mean, I know she lost to a Linda Rice horse that ran really well last time. But, my God, when you're coming off 3 straight seconds and then you hang like that, I do like the less distance for her, but I've decided to take a little bit of a shot with a horse that just might not be good enough. And I understand that in Mersal. I know this is a very interesting claim. Vinny Scuderia, who's part owner of this horse, I mean, he's been around a long time, and he's back, and Rick is back in the game, and I wish Rick a lot of luck. I'm glad to see him back, and people deserve second chances, and he certainly was coming off of a very severe penalty, to say the least. I know this trainer seemed a little live, and this horse, and these are better horses. This is not April Antics, but she's improving a lot, and I thought it was really interesting that Vinny and Rick dipped in for a horse that you would think, why would somebody claim this horse? And I think she's the candidate to take another step forward for Rick.
Especially, I think it's interesting if you do end up wanting to drop her back down into claiming races. She's gone through her conditions, too. You know, she was a short price in the non-winners of 3 level last time. It's not a surprise that she won that day. She went through the non-winners
Liberty
of
Flame
2.
was the big favorite.
Liberty Flame was the favorite, and she came back to win with a 64 Beyer speed figure in her subsequent start.
But less distance. The mile was too far for her.
Right, which is her key. But yeah, I could certainly see the case for it. I put the other Dutro horse, Saforadata, in there. I agree with you. She's not want to win, but it's second off the
You don't have her
here.
in there. You've completely dismissed her.
No, that should be 5, not 4.
Oh, now it's supposed
not
to be
my
a 5.
girl
You didn't pick my
Chow.
girl Chow?
I did not pick
Keisha?
my girl
Was you
Chow.
doing your picks at
I'm
hot
sorry,
yoga this morning?
That should be 11, 10, 5,
getting really
9.
hot in there.
Not the 4. Not the 4, my girl Chow.
That's her story, and she's sticking with it. She really likes my girl
Chow.
Chow.
Because the 5 was 4-1. I must have mentally switched
Yeah,
that
whatever.
up. Anyway, bet my girl Jal now, because now she's going to hit the board.
Actually,
with a
there's some
big
things
price.
to like, because she's
There
not
are.
impossible
you could make
here.
A case
She
for
ran
her.
very well, ran 2
Absolutely.
races back, actually.
Absolutely, you could. Yes.
Yeah, I think if I'm right about her, I'm going to get paid. And that was what I was looking for in a race that I thought was
Very
extremely tough. And this is a terrific, terrific race at this level. Race number 8 at a mile on the turf. What'd you do here?
I went to...
My girl Jal in here, too?
I did not. I went to the 5, Kingfish Stevens for Carlos Martin.
I've got her second.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the blinkers are going on, but it's not a true huge equipment change because she's one that has worn your favorite set of equipment in cheek pieces.
I love a cheek piece.
She has a lot on her face usually. So Carlos has been kind of playing around. He's added a shadow roll, added the cheek pieces. Now it's blinkers, the cheek pieces coming off, which will close her in a little bit more than the cheek pieces would. That said, she was out from the outside post last time. She was 3 wide throughout. She kind of like lost her footing a little bit, leaning on another horse coming into the turn. And while she was lugging in, and I would imagine that's why we have all of those equipment changes with her, she did run on a bit.
And the rails came down the Widener turf for the first time since Belmont weekend, which can often result in a gold rail. Now, I didn't think that was the case, but still, 3 to 4 wide, being out there under that circumstance probably wasn't the best scenario. Now, I thought he ran very well when second, 3 back, because he made a first move into a pace that completely collapsed. Having said that, I think that 80 buyer is kind of not predictive going forward. Nagarak did not show up at all off that race when he ran the Manila, obviously a tougher spot, but he didn't come back and run to that kind of race that he ran that day. So I'm a little worried that he's more of a mid-70 type buyer horse, and the fast pace helped the 79 fig. But I can see it. I think he's fine in here. Obviously, I put him second because a lot of horses in here that I didn't like. As far as Unleash the Power, it really feels as though he's come alive. I mean, look at the prices he's been in his recent races.
It's 25 to 1
and
last time.
He should have won this race. We'll show the race and we'll show the start. So he's the number 4 in here. He's going to break a step slow, and he gets completely squeezed out and taken out of position. And he's a horse that can be much, much more forward than this. And it was a race that was dominated in the front end. Both Hidden Path and Blue Devil ran 1-2 around the racetrack. So he had to be sort of rushed up midway in the race from bad position, not his own fault really at the start. And he runs a competitive third in this race where nobody else was gaining any ground whatsoever. And it feels to me like a horse who's just improving coming in for Al Stall. And I like the new face because My Sea Cottage, he just doesn't
know his
win.
game.
And, I mean, his race 2 back was awful in defeat. It was a slow pace. Last time out, he was on a pace that was extremely slow and benefited the front runners. Born a Gambler got a sensational trip and ride for Manny Franco, and I thought those were weaker horses. So there were a lot of horses in here I just wasn't a big fan of. Let me ask you a question about Thunder Lane. He comes out. Is he a horse that's dressed up off one of those faster turf figs because he was in a tougher field?
Very well could be. I mean, it was a huge price that day, and
It was a big move forward for him.
it was. It was a big step forward. Is he one that's improving? I don't.
Or was
I
it
don't
just
really know.
being in against better horses on the turf that can sometimes dress them up?
I found him a tough horse to get a read on. I put in 4th the 12 Chileno. I'm just really curious to see because this horse has a big turf pedigree on the bottom.
Yes, he does.
And Linda Rice claims this horse and immediately puts him on the grass.
But she's 1 for 14
I
first
know,
time off
I
the
know,
turf.
I saw
telling
the same
you
thing.
know that
Yep.
stuff. I'm telling them. I know you know, okay?
3 for 14
By
in the
the
money.
way, Acacia knows, in case you're wondering. I never can fool Acacia. I try. Occasionally.
You are much better with like the history
I'm
stuff.
ancient. I'm ancient. You're young. I agree. It's a weird turf
It
pedigree.
is.
And I wonder a little bit if that's what Linda's finding out
Yeah.
right at the beginning of the meet
Let's
with
see
her.
what happens.
Let's see if this horse
Yeah.
can handle the turf. Otherwise, find out right away, and then I can check that
You can
box,
still
as
run
we
him
say,
later
and
in the meet.
Run in the dirt races. I agree. It's not a great post to start it out. I think the rails are at 9 feet on both courses to talk it. We won't take them down in the inner, I imagine, until 4-star Dave week. Race number 9, the Schuylerville. Unfortunately, lost a few horses in here, and I think your top choice, the
Yes.
number 4, Status Seeker, came out. We'll start with Wine on Tap, a horse that both of us have in the mix. You have second, I have third. And I'm going to show a stat for Todd Pletcher afterwards. This horse ran first time. I wonder, though, did that really look like a 76 buyer field to you?
No, it didn't. And you know what's interesting about this filly, too, is I remember Maggie Wolfendale being in the paddock before the race and saying she just looks like a horse that needs to fill into her frame. She wants more distance. And you could see that in the way that she ran. It's not like she was easing away, cruising from this field. Irene Ortiz was working on her the whole way. And I think in large part it was also because some of the ones behind her didn't run much.
Particularly the co-favorite, the David Donk horse. Now, we'll show the stat for Todd Pletcher. I thought this was kind of a very telling stat. And second-time stars that broke their maidens in their debut in dirt sprints at Saratoga.
Wow.
While 10 have hit the board, to be fair,
Yeah.
and there are some short prices in there, you can be sure, he's just 1 for 17. And, overall, he's 5 for 29 with second-time stars anywhere. And it just seems like, surprisingly, a lot of these first-time stars, these horses that won their debuts for Todd, have not come back and run as well. And that makes me worried a little bit as well.
It's a very interesting stat, too, because also when you think about it, we always think of Todd having really live first-time starters. And sometimes if they're kind of cranked up to win first out, maybe they regress a little bit after that race, and they need to start to get back on track and find their feet, too.
Well, I'll give you a good example. He's got a pretty good 3-year-old in his barn that won his debut extremely impressively, and he bombed opening weekend here in the Saratoga Special. He got on track again in the Hopeful and obviously became the 2-year-old champion, Forte.
Pointing to the
He
Jim Dandy
had a
that said
very good
yesterday.
learning experience in his second start. It's one of the reasons I had liked him going forward. But he did not run as well as he did in his debut, and it's sort of maybe the similar case here for this one. Closing act, it's funny because, you know, some people are going to say, well, this horse won the Astoria, the first stake we ran. They timed this race with a sundial. And yes, she has experience, but she is woefully slow based on her races compared to these.
I begrudgingly put her in fourth. I nearly put the 11 Sugar Treat that you had in fourth. But yes, I know that she won first out at Churchill, which was also a slow race. She was kind of like running up with her head in the air that day too. And it did improve in the second start. I know she won a stake, but it really was not the most encouraging performance.
And I mean, her stablemate who won the Tremont, and he's going to be a heavy favorite this weekend for Steve Asmussen. He ran almost 3.5 seconds faster than her, and he looks like he's like I mean, you don't want to compare him to a Jack, but he looks like a 2-year-old with the kind of talent that Jackie's Warrior was showing at 2, and that camera on top is making me dizzy. I may throw up if I keep looking at that. The horse that you scratched into that I originally liked in here, Carmelina, I'll tell you something, the scratches really helped her.
Yes.
It took some speed out. Now, what worries me a little bit as we watch her impressive debut, she did break a step slow.
Yep. Not
and
the quickest.
She's got to get out of the gate from the rail. I was very impressed with this race, and I'm always looking at Butch Reed shippers to New York.
Oh, yeah. He's very sharp. Obviously, what he did with Vequist. Of course, you have Vequist's half-sister in here, Kiss for Luck, as well, who won a slow maiden race at Parks. But you know what's interesting? I was looking at the chart for Kiss for Luck's debut. Carmelina was in that race on May 23rd and was a late scratch because she unseated her rider in the post parade and ran off and
I think she would have won.
She probably would have won that day too. But that's something, I know Maggie's going to be reporting for that race, but that's something to keep an eye on. How does Carmelina act before the race?
Stuff.
Because I don't know what she did before that June 18th race, but she was a late scratch because she got loose back in May.
How about Gary Contessa with a first-time starter in here? First full with a fast work.
Very quick work.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that one's in there. What about Saratoga Secret, a horse I have second, you have third, who won first out for Wayne Lucas? Remember somebody on a message board said, I wonder if Wayne will bring that one to Saratoga. And I said, she won her debut. She'll be in the Schuylerville, the Adirondack,
I don't
and
think
the
Wayne
Spinaway.
ever met an entry box he didn't like.
Wayne and Steve
love.
Asmussen,
We
they
love that.
run them.
You know, she was a little anxious in the gate in her first start. Not the quickest out of the gate yet again. So I think it'll be really interesting to see who breaks the fastest in here. And she was a little bit green, switching leads, but she finished best. And obviously there's a huge step forward that can be taken from first to second start.
And she beat a Steve Asmussen firster who finished second, who had a lot of speed. The heavy favorite in this race was Trained By.
Oh, I don't know that.
I stumped her.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave. I feel good. Your buddy, Doug O'Neill.
Oh, okay.
Doug O'Neill had an even money shot in the race that did not run particularly well in there.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to discount Wayne with the 2-year-olds, an horse that won first time out as well. I tried to make Sugar Treat coming in off a synthetic race. Mark Hasse has some decent numbers, synthetic to dirt off wins and such. I won't be shocked if she improves in here because, I mean, I don't think there's any, especially if you're trying to beat Todd Pletcher's horse, I'm not that afraid of anybody here. We'll see who steps forward.
No, that's for sure. And like I said, there's a lot of improvement that can be had at this stage of the game. And while it was on the Tapeta down at Gulfstream, she overcame some things too. She was chasing down the 6-5 shot, who's a pace setter on the front end. She was coming from off of it. Second place finisher came back to win. She did work 21-2 at that OBS March sale. And so you wonder, is she a horse that just travels well over the synthetic? I thought that she finished up pretty well, but didn't start the best in that workout. So I think she has to prove that she can handle the main track today.
We'll see what happens. She's after one decent dirt horse, but two that couldn't run on it at all, but for whatever that's worth. Race number 10, taking a look at Aracima, finishing third. This is back at Aqueduct 2 starts ago. I'm not against her. I've got her second. You've got her third. The reality is she's picking up a rider switch to Flavian Pratt. She's running against better horses, and she's, I think, an extremely likely winner of this race.
I completely agree. I know that she's had a lot of chances, and you can kind of look at her in first blush and say, well, you know, she's run quite a few times already without getting the job done, but this is her first time dropping in class. And that's kind of how I felt about Stone of Destiny. In this race, I wanted the horses that were dropping for the first time and hadn't been exposed for a claiming tag before.
No, I agree. And I mean, with Stone of Destiny, as you pointed out, I know she didn't break in her last race. I wish she had done a little bit of running in there.
She could have done a little bit after that. I know.
Yeah, that's what, I thought about putting her on top, and I've obviously got her third, and I agree. I think if you're trying to beat the 7, she's clearly one you have to use in here. I wish she did a little bit of running for Dave Donk in that race.
I do like that Johnny V stays.
It's not riding for his father-in-law, though, in the last race here. That's my favorite awful angle I used to hear. Of course, his father-in-law, Leo O'Brien, is retired, so he won't be riding for him. But Leo, of course, as many remember, aside from being a terrific guy, a very good trainer, and the trainer of 4-Star Dave.
That's right.
The legendary 4-Star Dave. Speaking of legends, the son of a legend and a legend in his own mind actually just stepped into the studio. He's not even listening to us.
No, he's not. He's not paying
LP3
attention.
setting up in the studio and ignoring his good friend Acacia and his enemy, Andy Serling. Here we go again. There's two things about Here We Go Again. This is an interesting trainer change to Robbie Falcone. It is a rider change to Luis Saez, but also this is a test of a horse, a 3-year-old, who has those slow figs as a 2-year-old, but we often see those slow figs get improved upon. So with Luis taking over the ride, with Robbie Falcone taking over the training, and a reasonably expected bump in figure from 2 to 3, now you're starting to talk about a horse that could be fast enough to win this race, and a little bit better price looking for somebody. Lafitte made a bet with me last year that he was going to dress as Mr. Met on stage here if the Mets won a 3-game series. The Dodgers, we spotted him the first game, and this was the Mets of last year. No, we're not going double or nothing. You're dressing as Mr. Met. You're throwing stuff at me on the set.
He's very anxious. He does a lot of preparation.
I want to finish so I can get a quick bite to eat. So we're going to finish up here so I can get away from Lafitte. I'm spending enough time with him today. Anyway, we're thrilled to be back. Acacia, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Acacia will be on Thursdays, so you know. I'm looking forward to that as well. And we're looking forward to you joining Naira Bets. Head on over to NairaBets.com if you're not a member. Use the promo code SPA200, and we will match with $200 of your initial deposit. And once you've signed up, you can opt in for the many wonderful things available on Naira Bets, including the early bird special. Bet 100 and more on the first 5 at Saratoga, and we'll give you $10 back, win, lose, or draw. I've already opted in for that one. We also have, this is Acacia's favorite moment, the middle pick 4,
Get
2,
excited.
4, and 7 on our 10 race cards for pick 4s. We have Saratoga Live. I said it right again. Acacia, as you're trying to jinx me.
You'll be sitting next to Lafitte Pinkai.
We're starting a little bit early, so I get an extra half hour with the wonderful Richard Migliori and the mediocre Lafitte Pinkai III. And, of course, the real talent in the group will be joining us later, and some of us will be in the paddock, as you'll be in the paddock starting in race 3. Maggie will be the first couple of races. Looking forward to it.
Sarah will be joining us, too.
Sarah will be on. Yeah, Sarah has a very enviable job, by the way, interviewing people around the track in the first few races. Better her than me. Anyhow, looking forward to Saratoga. Glad we're back. Excited we're back, and excited that the new voice of Saratoga, the man, Frank Miramati, he's coming up next with the reprise, the Scratch and Changes. Have a great opening day. Have a great 40 days here in Saratoga.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.